The views of this program are not necessarily the views of KJLL Radio, its management, or its sponsors. The host is solely responsible for its content. Enjoy.
To the Jake Feinberg Show, and it's a beautiful Saturday afternoon. Reminder, 7th Annual Tucson Record Show, November 6th, Sunday, November 6th. Doors open at 10 o'clock in the morning at Las Casulitas Event Center. Don't miss it. I just want to get right to it. Over the course of the Jake Feinberg Show, I have interviewed many big names in jazz. Carter, Duke, Handy, Brubeck. But it's the primary goal of my show. It's what my show started out being, was to interview players that helped me fall in love with jazz. Guys who played at Jack's on Sutter Street in San Francisco, or at the Jigogu in Japantown, or at the Keystone Corner. And certain individuals made albums as leaders that helped me get through difficult times in my life, made me jump for joy or be moved to tears. Not to mention the fact I got to pass on the beautiful music to my daughter, Hannah. I'm forever grateful. My guest today has done all this for me and so much more. I'm so excited to be able to talk to him. Michael Howell, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Hey, Jake, how you doing, man?
It's so good to talk to you, man. And I just wanted to actually start out by saying I was hoping you could say a few words about the late, great drummer Eddie Marshall. I know you played a lot with him.
Oh, man, what a loss. What a loss. Yeah, Eddie Marshall was one of those guys who could play anything, and he was such a joy to play with. You know, I don't know if you met him.
I never did.
But he had a great spirit. He loved to laugh, tell jokes, and he made you feel good and got into whatever you were playing to make it sound better. I mean, what else could you say? You know, he swings, and he played recorder as well as any saxophone player. It was just amazing.
Wow.
He's really going to be missed in San Francisco, man. I miss him, and he was a special person, you know.
Yeah, and it's sort of like the more and more I come into this, as I continue these interviews, it was those guys like Eddie Marshall and Billy Higgins who inevitably always had a smile on their face, and they could always make you feel upbeat no matter what kind of, they could be in the worst mood in the world and they were still smiling. There's love, man. Yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah, Billy Higgins was like that. He could play, and he had a style that he could play the same way with anybody, and it worked because it was so together, you know.
Yeah, it's true, and I but Michael, I kid you not. I mean, like I said, I mean what I say in that intro, and the truth is that I wanted to take some time to talk a little bit. You grew up in Kansas City, and I know your dad, he instilled an appreciation for a lot of the heavies of the time period, Bird and Dizzy and those guys, and I was curious as to how you were exposed to that music. Was there AM bleed through channels, or did you have a record player? How did that work?
Actually, my father didn't like to hang out in clubs, and he knew all those musicians. He knew Bird and all the Kansas City guys. And the guy that got me started, his name was Dennis Hurley. He's from a family of brothers. All were musicians, all good musicians, and the guitarist was Dennis Hurley, and he was giving my father guitar lessons. And I would sit there and listen to him play and talk about all these musicians. You know, I didn't know how important they were at the time.
Sure.
But they seemed to really respect them and like them, you know. And so I heard music, and they would play it on record players. My mother wasn't into jazz that much.
What would she do for a living?
And, she had on whatever the latest thing was on the radio. Of course, in Kansas City, they did play a lot of mixture of things, really.
I'm sure a lot of blues,
At that time, of course, Count Basie was the rage, because everybody knew Count, and he had made it big, and they played blues. Mostly like Mr. 5x5, Jimmy Rushing, and stuff like that. Joe Turner, Yeah, it was beautiful. You could hear music when you walked down the streets because the clubs would have speakers out where you could hear them. And music started in the evenings, early in the evenings, before it got dark.
And
I just heard it all the time. That's what I thought music was. It was jazz.
Right. I mean, it was a popular music, and then also it was this idea that you would play. Things would go on later into the evening too, where you would have, and this was probably more your scene, and I don't want to rush into it, but the idea that clubs could stay open from 1 to 5. They may not serve alcohol, but you could at least see music. Guys could get their sound out. I mean, there was just that much more opportunity. At least in California, I know that was the case.
Yeah, I think all over the country it was just very different, where musicians played all the time, everywhere, went to each other's house. Clubs stayed open much longer, Because clubs were a thing that people did. They go out to hear music. I don't think they do that as much anymore.
That's exactly right. They'd rather just stay inside, and they have all their surround sound equipment, beautiful atmospherics. But so then Michael Howell goes to you go to Colorado, but I read somewhere that this is a great line. You found the academic atmosphere stifling, okay? And so you picked up and you moved to San Francisco in 1964. And what did you see? What was there when you got there? What did you discover?
Yeah, Denver was kind of stifling. I have to admit, though, I can't completely put it down. There were some, in fact, the trumpet player that was on my first album, Julius Ellerby, was the one that really gave me a lot of help when I was there. I was walking down the street and I heard this trumpet playing all the Clifford Brown stuff. I said, my God, who is this? And I knocked on his door and said, hey, mister. You sound like Clifford Brown. And he asked me what I played, guitar, and there's an opportunity. He got somebody to play changes for him while he practices. So it was good for him, and it was good for me because he taught me a lot of tunes, and he was one of those people that played in all the keys and so forth. So, it wasn't totally bad, but I was ready to go.
Could you talk a little? I mean, I didn't mean to exaggerate. I know what you mean, but it was too academic. Well, I mean, what was it about it that it just wasn't free? I mean, because you went to the freest area in the country, so was it just too restrictive in some sense?
Well, you just had I don't know where they got that. It was too academic. It was just not enough musicians and people to play there. And it was a whole different atmosphere for me. You have to remember, in the 50s, I came from Kansas City. When I got to Denver, that was the first time I had been around any white people.
Right.
Kansas City, it was all African Americans. The stores, the schools, everything I did, that was in that environment. And this was like, whoa.
yeah. What's going on?
Yeah. So it was a unique experience for me, there was a saxophone player there, getting off the subject just a little bit. His name was Johnny Hartsfield. Played just like Charlie Parker, just unbelievable. And years later, when I was with Dizzy, I asked Dizzy, I says, there was a guy in Denver that claimed that he played like Bird before Bird did. And Dizzy said, yeah, Johnny Hartsfield. I didn't even, Dizzy already knew. I said, wow. I said, is that true? He says, yeah. Well, he said he didn't last long. He had some personal problems.
Right.
And he left.
Of course, Dizzy would know that. I mean, I've talked to enough guys. Just the plethora of knowledge is just confounding. And the fact that he would know that is just classic.
But, that was just interesting. That's one of those people that was in Denver that hardly anybody knew about, When I got to San Francisco, we get back to that, I went out there, I heard Wes Montgomery was there. And I found him the first night I got there.
At the Booker T. Washington or where?
No, it was a place called the Playpen.
Oh, boy. This is exactly what I want to hear from Michael. This is why we have Michael Howell on the program today. Go ahead, brother.
And I got there. There were only 5 people in the place. Oh, it was... I mean, I didn't mind because I was getting to hear Wes.
Exactly.
Well, I was so disappointed. There were only 5 people in the place. This was with the organ trio. I forgot the organ player's name. Great organ player, still around. Paul Parker was playing drums. And I guess Wes could tell I was a guitarist because when I walked in the door, he had this cigarette in his mouth, and he took it out and played one of those ripping chords about 1,000 miles per hour and kind of smiled at me and says, "Now, how you like that?"
Oh, man, that's cool.
Yeah, I got to talk to him, hang with him a little bit. He was really a beautiful guy.
And he had a day job, too.
Well, he didn't in San Francisco. He did in Indianapolis. I think he had like 7 kids, 8 kids. He was a welder or something like that.
Right.
But he worked all the time in Indianapolis.
Carl Burnett, the great drummer, told me that that when he would leave to go on road trips, when he would come back to San Francisco, Monk and Carl held down the fort. He still had a room there. When he would come back, he still had a room at the Booker T.
I didn't know that.
But the point is that it was like a family, Michael. I mean, isn't that the reality? Is that everybody was kind of pulling for each other. The money, the money wasn't. The money was not. The money was just enough to have a little bit of fun, and then you had to get back to writing the music again because you ran out of money.
But when I got to San Francisco, and it was like 62, something like that, early 62 or 3, there was plenty of music, though. And the Fillmore area, there was 2 or 3 clubs on every block for about 6 blocks.
Unbelievable, my God.
Jack's of Sutter Street was one of them. It was beautiful. I used to play with, I was really trying to get into the music. This, I'm finally like 21, 22, and I'm on my own and sitting in everywhere I can. I met Dewey Redman there. Dewey Redman was playing a lot like Sonny Rollins at the time. I didn't know that he grew up with Ornette. And every now and then he would go off on this stuff, and I'm saying, what are you doing? He said, "You'll hear it." And later on, he took off and went with Ornette. I said, that's what he's doing.
Did you, I was going to say, I mean, the Fillmore District, you wound up down with those organ trios with Groove Holmes and Merle Saunders. Is that how you met Merle originally?
Yeah. Jack's of Sutter Street was amazing. They not only had music every night from 9 to 1, they would open up again in the morning like at 6 o'clock and go to noon.
Oh, my God.
Of course, there was hours in between that. There was a point that I worked 7 days a week for about 3 years. And I used to go to all of Jack's things because that's where I got to play with all the organ players, and I ended up getting most of the morning gigs because the guys didn't want to get up in the morning. So I got to work with... Actually, I did work with Merle, not only in that, but other stuff. And Richard Groove Holmes, and of course Chester Thompson. Man, that was a joy. I mean, he was technically like a freak of nature. He was just ambidextrous. Could play solo in one hand, chords in the other, and the bass line with his feet.
Did you play in that trio with Herschel Davis?
The drummer.
Yeah, he was, because I know when I talked to Chester, he was playing with Rudolph.
Yeah. Well, Rudolph, I started playing with him when Rudolph left. Rudolph went to L.A.
Exactly.
And
he mentioned that Herschel was he sang a lot, and a lot of times in order to kind of, be enough of an attractive fit, you had to be able to play instrumental music, but you also had to do the R&B and the kind of vocal stuff too to keep the audience more diverse.
Yeah, but not so much at Jack's, though. Jack's was a jazz audience. Jack's, they wanted to hear you swing, Mm-hmm. We did a few of them, but matter of fact, during that time, Chester got me started with that studying in this book, contrapuntal technique. And we would study it, and he was using it on these Wayne Shorter tunes. He was really stretching me because most organ players just play blues-type chords. But Chester was doing fourths, more like McCoy Tyner and stuff,
And then we get to the to the reason why I essentially started my show on the radio here. Michael, I tried to do some politics for a while, some stuff that was locally that might resonate with some of the public, but then I realized I have to go towards my strength. I have to go towards my love of this time period when there were people like you and Benny Maupin and Ndugu Chancellor, Woody Shaw and Chester Thompson, and you put out an album, and I've talked about it with the Skipper, and I've talked about it with Ndugu, and now we get a chance to talk about it with you. And the song was called The Call. We're going to play a rather long clip of it, and we might come back before the break, Michael, but I just want you to marinate in it and enjoy it, and then when we get a chance, we can break it down, okay?
Great.
All right now.
All right.
Mike. Thanks for. I mean, we got about a couple minutes before we can come back after and talk about it. But thank you for being alive, man. Because that when I talked to the skipper, he said Michael kind of gave us a sketch of what he wanted, but Henry hadn't heard that since '73, and it blew his mind, man. Go take it away.
Oh yeah, it was beautiful. I just gave him a sketch. That's why I wanted them, Henry and Ndugu, on this. They had done my first album, and they just read my mind. I said, I'm not going to tell them anything. Just let them do it. And Ndugu brought it on, too. And, of course, Benny Maupin. Whoa.
Holy, that's a serpent, like whatever he was doing was just like, it was like a snake rising out of a genie or something. It was just incredible. And then you come in with, like, I hear psychedelic rock, I hear jazz, I hear blues, you were doing everything. I mean, listen, Mike, it's an honor to have you on here. This is, like I said, the reason why I do this show. And I don't want to rush into it. We're going to come back. We're going to listen to more music. We're going to keep talking about your career. So you just hang tight, my friend. We'll come back on the other side, okay?
All right, great.
CNN Radio, I'm Stan Case. The Occupy Wall Street protests have entered a fourth week in New York and spread to other cities around the country. This New Jersey grandmother explains why she's involved.
I'm worried my son, about my grandchildren, about my neighbors. I just worry about decent people who want to work and can get a job.
The demonstrators are protesting what they consider inequities in the U.S. financial system. Republican presidential hopeful Ron Paul has come up the winner of another straw poll. He got 37% of the votes at the Values Voters Summit, a gathering of social conservatives organized by the Family Research Council. Herman Cain was second at 23%. Major League Baseball's playoffs begin round 2 tonight in Arlington, Texas. The Rangers host the Detroit Tigers in Game 1 of the American League Championship Series. And Oakland Raiders owner Al Davis died Saturday. He was 82. The most trusted name in news. This is CNN Radio.
Hey, gingerbread man, you seem pretty burned. Acapulco?
I wish. I got burned in the old oven again.
Woo!
Faulty thermostat, uneven heat. Hand me the lotion.
Okay, except you know that's frosting.
I thought it tasted pretty good.
Time for a new stove? Come to the Sears Holiday Preheat event now and save up to 20% on all Kenmore, up to 10% off Whirlpool and KitchenAid, plus an extra 10% off all appliances with your Sears card. Sears. Exclusions apply. See store for details. Kenmore savings range from 5 to 20%. Whirlpool and KitchenAid from 5 to 10%. Offer valid 10/7/2011 to 10/11/2011.
At Advance Auto Parts, we don't do anything just part way. We go full throttle. We won't just sell you a few cans of oil. No, we'll sell you a 5+ quarts jug of Valvoline conventional motor oil for just $13.99 after $7 mail-in rebate. Then we'll throw in a Purelator Classic oil filter free. If wrestling a live bear would help us get you a better deal, we'd do it while wearing salmon cologne. Service is our best part. Advance Auto Parts. Pre-rebate price $20.99. See store for details.
I'm in the I need cordless cutting shears to finish this vent work business.
At Grainger, we know what business you're in.
I'm in the if you can help my business, then you'll get my business.
The business of getting things done. That's why we offer over 900,000 products and the support you need to get your job done right and on time. Call, click Grainger.com or stop by one of our branches. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Ray, technician from Safe Light Auto Glass.
A chip is 1,000 micro cracks waiting to spread. One big bump and crack. We'll have to replace the whole windshield. But not if we repair the chip first with Safe Light's exclusive resin. It bonds stronger and lasts longer than other resins, and we guarantee it for life. Plus, with most insurance plans, it's no cost to you.
Call 1-800-800-2727 or go to safelight.com.
Safe Light Repair, Safe Light Replace.
Folks, this is Jake Feinberg. As a passionate consumer of vinyl records, I value the art of collecting and archiving. So I have marked my calendar for Sunday, November 6th for the 7th Annual Tucson Record Show, located at Las Casuaritas Event Center at I-10 in Grant. The show features vinyl collectors and dealers from all over the state. Doors open at 9 a.m. and tables are available for rent, but space is running out fast. For more information, contact Bruce Smith at 622-0104. The 7th Annual Tucson Record Show, 1365 West Grant and I-10, Sunday, November 7th. It's time to dig and get dirty. Don't miss it.
Even the ancient Romans knew that music can soothe the savage beast. But what if there's a beast lurking in your old stereo? Maybe it's popping static, garbled distortion, a skip in the record, or worse, dead silence. Stereo Hospital can restore smooth sound to your receiver, amp, turntable, CD player, or speakers. At the same Midtown location, 4044 East Speedway, for 10 years, Stereo Hospital might be the last shop in town doing quick, guaranteed repairs on vintage and modern stereos. Owner Jeff Brucker has over 40 years' experience as an electronic technician, and he is happy to bring back the joy and memories only your music collection provides. Log on to stereohospital.com or call 722-4610, or just bring that mean old stereo in today. Stereo Hospital at 4044 East Speedway, inside Metronome Music near Alvernon, to calm the beast.
Folks, this is Jake Feinberg. When it came time to decide where to buy my daughter a piano last year, the choice was easy. We got it at Hackenberg & Sons Piano Company. Located at 4333 East Broadway Boulevard, Hackenberg & Sons is Tucson's longest-running family-owned piano business. Run by three brothers and a son, they pride themselves on superior instruments and customer satisfaction. It's why they've been around so long. And it's why their pianos are used at the University of Arizona, Pima Community College, and many other prestigious institutions. So whether it's for your child, business, or yourself, when you buy a piano, make sure you go to Hackenberg & Sons. It'll be the beginning of a long-lasting partnership. For more information, visit them at hackenbergpiano.com. That good. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Be a part of a new coalition with Jake Feinberg. The second half of my show starts right now. Welcome back, everybody, to the Jake Feinberg Show. We're joined here today by legendary guitarist Michael Howell. Michael, welcome back.
All right.
You know, I'm still reverberating from the call, and you know, the idea of faith. Faith played a big role in that. Some people might say it's confidence, but for you to go in and see the guys and say, I'm just going to let them have at it, and we'll turn it into something groovy, that takes faith. And I think that there was a spirit of the time in April 1974.
Yeah, musicians work together more often, and that was a good time musically for me anyway. I mean, a lot of things were happening. You know, that first part when I got to San Francisco, I was trying to just find my way in the music world. Actually, during that time, I got to play a little bit with George Duke, you know, with the group Pete Magadini. And I
had no idea you played with John Hurd too?
John Hurd, John Hurd and the singer, the great singer.
Al Jarreau.
We all worked at this place called the Half Note, you know.
I had no idea that you played guitar in those sessions.
I did some of those. I was working in that place before they were, and they came in after us.
You got to. That is okay. I love these stories. So you played. So it actually turned into a quartet for a while.
I didn't work with them all the time because I was busy with another trio. So when I wasn't working, I loved the way George played. You know.
He's amazing, and you know, I'm gonna if it's the last thing I do, I got John Hurd coming to Tucson in January, but at the end of the day, I'm going to get Michael Howell and John Hurd to play in Tucson when it's all said and done, and Pete Magadini on drums.
That would be good.
Well, it needs to happen, my friend. But you know, the other thing about this album that has caught my attention is the fact that your brother, I believe, Glenn, he played bass on a couple of the tunes, and one of them is this song called "Ebony King," and I have to tell you, I want to listen to it, and I want you to take us through musically the sensory and the lyricism and the melodic tendencies of you and Benny Maupin, because when my daughter and I listen to this on the way to school every day, it kind of drives her crazy, but it's worth the listen. So let's check it out, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Sure.
You guys are just listening to each other really beautifully.
Oh, yeah, I hadn't heard that in a long time.
I'm glad, because, I listen to it every day. And what it shows me is there's a selflessness and a camaraderie, almost like a basketball team passing the ball back and forth. It's beautiful, and quite frankly, it's completely missing from our society today.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting. That's a tune that I wrote, kind of dedicated to my father, who had died a few years before. He was a newspaper man in Kansas City. That's what he was a writer.
Wow. What did he write about?
He wrote columns, just anything he wanted, really.
Like commentaries? Opinion columns, stuff like that.
Opinion columns and so forth.
But you wrote Ebony King for him.
Well, Ebony King was for Martin Luther King, and The Call was for my father.
Oh, wow. Because, and not to mention, your brother was dropping bombs on that song as well. I mean, I just love, it's like a chugging locomotive, really. I've been trying to get inside that session.
Actually, on that one, let me see, that was Ebony King. Actually, I have to thank my brother for that, because he was like an avant-garde musician. He was a DJ, but he worked with Anthony Braxton.
Oh, wow.
Had a group called Infinite Sound, and he's the one that turned me on to Cecil Taylor and makes me listen to some other music. And I think he was playing the high parts on this, and the skipper was playing the low parts,
Yeah, exactly, because I was going to say, because it says Glenn Howell on Ebony King, but there's times in that song where I swear it's Henry playing. So
yeah, both of them are playing, I think.
And I'll tell you, I promoted a concert in South Central back in July, and the person who gave it the instant credibility that it got was the skipper. I came to him with the idea of doing a tribute to Gene Russell, the old black jazz founder. Mm-hmm. And we got Calvin Keyes to come down from the Bay Area, and Carl Burnett on drums, and Bob Pierce, and also George Harper on sax. And Michael, it was like an out of body experience, but none of it would have been possible without the skipper. Do you want to talk a little bit about
the skipper is amazing, man. He's known in L.A. He's kind of like the Godfather down there.
He is.
But as a musician, he's one of those that just puts it in the pocket where it needs to be. And he and Ndugu are like a hand and glove. They work so well together. I remember.
Yeah, go ahead.
My brother wasn't supposed to be on this session. On the skipper's trip to San Francisco, his bass was left or something happened. So I called my brother.
Yeah.
And he brought his bass, but then the skipper finally got his bass. He said, well, since both of you are here,
right, you might as well put you both on there. And then another unsung hero of that time period is Kenneth Nash. I thought he added a tremendous amount of percussion to.
Oh, those colors that he put in there!
Holy cow.
I have to admit, I'm not a really good studio musician.
I'd love to see you.
I'm really nervous in studios, and you spend so much time getting it together, and you don't spend much time practicing it. And every one of those guys were like so helpful. Let's do this. Let's try this. What do you think about that? Or, and they were just so willing to make it right. I can't thank them enough for making that album happen.
It reeled me in, and I couldn't. I was like, the song that got me was The Call, and it was my call was to do this show, and I'm forever grateful to all of you on the album. I mean, I haven't got Benny's coming on, although he's hard to get to, but like I said, I played the song for Ndugu, I played it for the skipper, and in many ways that was the impetus for the skipper to. He was so blown away by the fact that I even had this, and he hadn't even heard it since '73. He hadn't heard it since the session.
Yeah.
There wasn't this like over glorification. It was kind of like, okay, we cut that. Now we got to go. We got to do this. We got these gigs to play. People, you had to sing for your supper, and you had to keep playing. Otherwise, someone else was probably going to take your spot.
Yeah.
And then, so we moved. One question, one final, just to put a button on this. Can you talk about what Orrin Keepnews meant to the black jazz community? What he did as far as bringing you guys who were, I don't know if you want to call yourself statesmen, but you were artists. What did Orrin seemed to be a real spokesman, and he was strong. But you knew him, and I don't. So I was hoping you could talk a little bit about him.
Yeah, he. He's been around. He was in New York for years, so he'd been around musicians. That's kind of what producers do, know how to put certain musicians together to make them work. For instance, on the first record I did for him, I wanted to use some of the musicians I had worked with. Well, I ended up using the horn players that work with me, but he says, well, Hampton Hawes is in town. Mm-hmm. And he has the skipper and Ndugu. I knew him. I said, well, shoot, I can't go wrong with that. And it was beautiful. And the skipper and Ndugu worked so well. When I did the second one, I said, hey, man, let's use them again.
That's
bring it on.
See, that was the thing. Like, everybody's got a little bit of a different recollection of this album, but I don't think there's no bigger fan in the United States of any album. In the Silence, it is my number one album.
Oh, thank you.
And so then, of course, I continue to follow along the trajectory of your career in the 70s, and you wound up, Pat Britt, who, even though I think at the time he was based in Southern California, he said, there's a bunch of cats in the Bay Area that really need to be recorded. And it turned out that it was yourself, and it was Flip Nunez and George Murabus, and again we're getting into this sort of territory again of huge figures, guys that have passed, but they were total guys that Jake Feinberg would have given his heart and soul for, and you guys, to me, to be able to see you guys in, I guess it's Jigogu in Japantown, as Vince Latiano talked, in a quartet setting with double keyboards or an organ and a keyboard. Can you talk a little bit about that band and the kind of and what you used to play to get everybody grooving?
Yeah, Jigoku was right in the Japan Center there. There were like 22 clubs, but all of them had Japanese music. And this guy that owned the Jigoku was in the basement, and he was the only one that had jazz. And Flip Nunez, the pianist and wonderful singer, was spearheading that. And I worked with him for about 4 years. And we worked we worked 5 nights a week sometime down there. Oh. And it was a nice crowd. We had, my brother played bass at some time. We had 4 or 5 bass players. Eddie Marshall played drums. Vince Laniano played with us.
He sure did. No, we talked about that, when that's what made me lose my mind when he said that you were playing with Flip and with George.
And it would swing. It was just a relaxed. Flip had such a beautiful spirit. He would sit on the stage and just smile at people for 15 minutes, and everybody had a good time.
Yeah.
Then he started playing, and it just got better,
Yeah, like Vince said that he kind of had a rugged outlook, and, he might be hard to approach if you just looked at him from the outside, but he was just a teddy bear.
Yeah, yeah. Vince, when I first saw him, was playing in a big band, and I said, "What?" I went up on the break and says, "Vince, boy, you weird, man. You playing your butt off, but this is something strange." He had broken his wrist, and he was playing the drums with his left hand only.
Oh, my. And he was still getting a sound?
He was still getting a sound. And I said, "Boy, you got your own sound."
The one-handed drummer.
But he was playing it, though.
So you also, you did that solo album with Sama Layuka, and you talked about sitting in the Keystone Corner and being able to see McCoy play. And so, the reality is that Michael Howell, along with a lot of other musicians, you weren't just, you played 7 nights a week, but there was also times, especially when you first moved out there, where you were actually going to the gigs yourself and sitting in and checking guys out.
Oh, yeah, all the time. And, of course, I had a car there, so it was easier to do that, carry amp. And I sat in every chance I got with anybody I could, There was a drummer that passed away, Eddie Moore, that used to take me around in places. He introduced me to Coltrane, which was amazing. And
he was related to Merle, wasn't he?
Yeah, they were cousins.
Yeah, and then I heard this story about him actually having a heart attack and dying at Yoshi's.
On the stage, on the last tune, playing a tune called "Owl" by Dizzy Gillespie, and it hit the last note, and he just fell backwards off the drums. It's like a storybook death. It's not good.
No, it's not, but it's kind of like, I'm sure he wouldn't have wanted to go out any other way.
Yeah,
Can you talk a little bit about how you met? I will admit, and it's so great that I love Jerry Garcia, I love the Grateful Dead, and then I see on this album that Merle did with John Kahn and with Bill Vitt and
oh yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'm like down below it says guitar Michael Howell. I'm like, he got to be kidding me! Here he is again. How did that? Was that sort of, you had a contract with Fantasy or?
No. I hadn't done anything with Fantasy at that time. But San Francisco was a small place. When I was in the service for 4 years, and when I came back in the '70s to San Francisco, the scene had changed. Santana had gotten big, Grateful Dead, all these groups. And so I met them all, and I had all these offers to play with different pop groups that I really didn't want to do that. I enjoyed them. I met all the Grateful Dead. You'd see them at the music store and just hanging out.
Yeah.
And I used to do a few sessions with Merle, and I just came in and did one. He says, Jerry's going to be on this too. I said, oh, yeah.
How did it work? Like, on those sessions, Jerry would take a lead and you would take a solo. How would that work? Essentially, if both of you were playing on one tune.
Merle was he was did a lot of studio work. He would come in and I would jam with him. Then Jerry would come in and jam with him. then we jammed together. And I think he would splice together maybe, okay, I like Michael's part in this part and Jerry's part in this part and so forth and so on, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't really hear what it sounded like until it came out, you know.
it has you on there again, and it made me crack up because I said this is totally and then you try to figure out, well, how did Mike know all these people, and it makes sense. You come back and it seems sort of antithetical to say that San Francisco is a small city. At the time, it must have been small. Now it seems like it's somewhat of a veritable nightmare just to even park there. You had a car. Most people, they throw their car in the bay, you know, now. You can't even park for less than $700 a month. So things were so much more open, and it seemed like, obviously, like the skipper said, he cut grazing in the grass with Masakela. They partied, they spent the money, and then they had to get their butts back to the studio to make more music. I mean, you didn't make $10 million right off the bat.
No.
Then at some point, again, my ventures with Michael Howell continue into the mid '70s, and a guy that I just never paid attention to Dizzy Gillespie as far as just the personality, not just the sound, but also just the personality. And then I began to explore Mike Longo, the piano player, and he had Al Gaffa and Mickey Roker. So then I started to go after. So I did the In the Silence contingent, and then I started to go after Dizzy's band, or Mike Longo's band, however you want to refer to it as, from the early to mid to early '70s, and then in '75 Dizzy did the album Ba Hyena. And there I listened to Olinga, 20-minute version of Olinga, and there is Michael Howell's guitar. I wish we could play that right now. but what can you relate about those sessions? I mean, did you guys go out after and have a good time? I mean, it just seemed like there must have been some kind of chemistry.
But Dizzy always has a good time.
I know, but I mean, what does that mean? I mean, did he?
What happened on that session? I had met Dizzy before. I used to see him all the time in San Francisco because he used to hang out at the clubs. So he knew me. He just and he finally heard me playing at the Monterey Jazz Festival. He says, "I'm going to call you someday." And I said, "Yeah, all right, okay." Yeah. But I gave him the number.
Yeah, he did though.
And one day, the phone rang, and I wasn't there, and I got the message that somebody called. I think his name is Dizzy, but he didn't leave a number, so I called the record company. I knew he was with Pablo, and Norman Grant said, "Yeah, that was Dizzy." He says, "Look, we're waiting for you. Catch a plane on down to L.A." And I called a plane. I got there, and they were in the studio. And Dizzy says, it was Al Gaffa. Well, you have the album. Al Gaffa, Mickey Roker.
Earl May on bass.
Earl May, yeah, which was different.
Roger Glenn,
yeah.
Doug, I seriously, if I need to mellow out, if it's been a hard day, I can just throw on Olinga, and you are naturally forced, doesn't make a lot of sense. You naturally have to slow down because it's so drawn out, and it's so beautiful the way it's.
Oh, yeah, it would. And Dizzy says, I says, "Well, what do I do?" He says, "You'll hear it." And we went through a tune, and he's another one. And I says, "I didn't get that." He says, "Oh, you'll hear it."
You'll hear it. Don't worry, dude.
We're going through all this stuff, and I says, "Oh, I think I got it, boy. When we do it again, I'm going to nail it." And I heard Norman Grant says, "Oh, that's a rap, Dizzy." I said, "A rap?" I thought we were rehearsing.
Really?
Record.
Well, you know what? It came out pretty darn good, man. In our remaining couple minutes with Michael Howell, Mike, I just wanted. I know you mentioned you turned full time back into music, and I wanted to talk about what your future vision of this next chapter of your career holds for the rest of us, because I'm sure anxious about it.
I went in the studio not too long ago and did some stuff. I got to clean it up a little bit, but hopefully I'll have this out within next year, And I'm playing more. I just came back from Paraguay. I worked off and on with Jimmy Owens, the trumpet player.
Oh, wow.
I've been working with him actually off and on for about 20 years. Done a number of tours with him. and I'm trying to decide if I want to really push a group or do solo again. Because work is kind of weird.
Work is weird, but Michael, I'll tell you,
I love the interplay with musicians, though.
Well, I mean, that's why we played Ebony King, because the call and response between you and Benny was just brilliant. And I would be one to say, as long as we stay in touch, man, I'll always be pushing for a quintet or a quartet from you, man, because I think that it's your selflessness and it's your love of the team concept that shines through on these records and has really allowed me to fall in love with jazz. And so, Michael, I just can't thank you enough for being a part of the show, man, and stay in touch and keep it real, man.
I'm glad you enjoy it, and thank you for calling me.
You got it, my friend. This is the Jake Feinberg Show, everybody. We'll see you next Saturday on KJLL, The Jolt.
KJLL, South Tucson.
CBS News, I'm Sam Litzinger. It's another test of how popular or unpopular the GOP presidential contenders are with self-described social conservatives at the so-called